One coach told me, we tell our players to be as physical as they can possibly be for 40 minutes because we know for 38 of them, they're pretty much going to get away with it. So I think everybody would like to see a tighter whistle and a little bit more freedom of movement.
Yeah.
She is very difficult to officiate because of all of the contact that's happening around her all of the time. That being said, I was in contact with a number of WNBA coaches yesterday about this topic of the officiating in the WNBA.
In a moment that sent shockwaves through the entire WNBA community, Rebecca Lobo, Olympic gold medalist, Hall of Famer, and perhaps the most respected voice in women's basketball, finally broke her silence. She said what so many coaches, players, and fans have been afraid to say out loud. The officiating in the WNBA has spiraled into a dangerous mess, and the league's biggest star, Caitlin Clark, is paying the price. Lobo didn't mince words. She described Clark as nearly impossible to officiate fairly because of the relentless contact surrounding her every second on the court. And then came the real bombshell. Rebecca revealed she had spoken with several WNBA coaches behind the scenes, and not one of them defended the current officiating. Every single coach she spoke to agreed. It has to get better. Not just game to game, but within the same game, quarter to quarter, possession to possession. This isn't just about missed calls anymore, it's about survival. Because when someone like Rebecca Lobo raises the alarm, it means the issue isn't new, it's just no longer ignorable. When Caitlin Clark returned to the floor after a brief absence, she didn't just step back into a jersey, she reignited the entire league. Her performance was nothing short of a spectacle. In one half, she dropped 25 points, including a jaw-dropping stretch of 3 logo-range bombs in just 38 seconds. That kind of outburst doesn't just make headlines. It changes the entire energy around a sport. But here's the truth that many are now being forced to accept. The WNBA doesn't just benefit from Clark's presence. It relies on it. During her absence, ratings didn't just dip, they collapsed. Social media engagement flatlined. Interest from casual fans vanished, and storylines across the league suddenly felt like filler. But the second she returned, everything exploded. Her comeback game against the Liberty peaked at 2.8 million viewers. That's more than the NHL's Stanley Cup Finals. This isn't some flash-in-the-pan popularity. This is Caitlin Clark showing, again and again, that she's the engine powering an entire league. And that any time she's not on the court, the WNBA stalls out completely. One of the most disturbing moments in recent WNBA memory came during a game against the Connecticut Sun. And it wasn't just what happened, it was what didn't happen. Caitlin Clark was violently clawed in the face and shoved to the floor by 2 defenders, one of whom clearly gouged at her eyes. In any other league, at any other time, this would have triggered an immediate ejection. But in this case, nothing. Not a single whistle. The ref stood there, watching the face of the league get assaulted, and let it slide. The commentators were stunned. Fans on social media erupted. And yet, the league stayed silent. That silence isn't just complicity. It's an open invitation for more of the same. If Caitlin Clark can get body-checked and eye-gouged with 0 consequences, what message is the WNBA sending? That its top draw is fair game? That cheap shots are acceptable as long as they're competitive? This isn't just a refereeing failure. It's a credibility crisis, and unless the league steps in, these kinds of moments could become the norm, with devastating consequences. The physicality we're seeing directed at Caitlin Clark isn't just organic, it's being coached. According to Rebecca Lobo, some WNBA coaches are now openly telling their players to be as physical as possible because they know the referees won't call it. One coach reportedly told her, "We tell our players to be as physical as they can for 40 minutes, because for 38 of them, they'll get away with it." Let that sink in. That's not basketball. That's sanctioned violence. If teams are adjusting their game plans around the idea that Caitlin Clark won't be protected, then what we're witnessing isn't just bad officiating. It's an institutional failure. And the worst part? It's working. Players are fouling her hard, dragging her to the ground, and targeting her physically because they know it gives them an advantage. This turns the sport into a free-for-all, where the team willing to hack and grab the most has the upper hand. If that continues, Caitlin Clark's health isn't just at risk. The WNBA's entire future is hanging in the balance. After yet another game marred by questionable officiating and dangerous play, Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White had enough. Her press conference after the Liberty game was a masterclass in controlled fury. Before even speaking, her body language said it all. arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes furious. And then she let it out. White pointed to a staggering 31 free throw disparity in recent games, asking the obvious question: how can a team that attacks the basket as much as the Fever do not get calls? She called out the officials directly, saying, "Everyone in the league is getting better, except the refs." That's a brutal indictment. And it's not coming from a fan or a journalist. It's coming from a head coach who sees her players taking hits night after night while getting no protection. The worst part, she's not alone. Stephanie voiced what dozens of coaches are thinking. Her message was clear. If officiating doesn't improve, not only will games continue to be dangerous, they'll also be fundamentally unfair. During a tight matchup between the Fever and the Liberty, with the game hanging in the balance and seconds left on the clock, Caitlin Clark was clearly fouled by Natasha Cloud. The contact was obvious. Replay after replay showed Clark getting hit before she could even rise for a final shot. Yet somehow no whistle blew. The refs let it go. That moment wasn't just frustrating. It became the spark that ignited a firestorm. Fans flooded social media with slow-motion clips, analysts demanded accountability, and Clark's coach, Stephanie White, didn't hold back. She called the non-call egregious and said what many were thinking. If Caitlin Clark isn't going to get a whistle in that moment, then the rules clearly don't apply the same way to everyone. But what's truly terrifying is that this wasn't a one-off mistake. It was the latest link in a growing chain of officiating failures, all disproportionately affecting the league's biggest star. When even the final possession of a nationally televised game ends in blatant injustice, it doesn't just make fans angry. It makes them question the league's integrity. And once that doubt settles in, it's nearly impossible to shake. If the officiating crisis wasn't serious enough, this next revelation should leave everyone deeply unsettled. Players have begun to report something truly alarming. When they bring up dangerous plays to the refs, hits that could lead to injuries or already have, they aren't just ignored. They're laughed at. One player described telling a referee, "Watch my landing space. This is getting physical, and I'm going to get hurt." The ref's response? Laughter. Another player talked about turning their ankle after repeated missed calls. Not once, but in multiple games. These aren't diva complaints or exaggerations. These are real injury risks in a professional league that claims to care about player safety. And the league's silence? Deafening. When the people tasked with keeping order on the court are laughing at those begging for help, the problem goes beyond bad officiating. It becomes toxic. Players are losing trust. Coaches are losing patience. And fans? They're losing respect. If the league doesn't put a stop to this soon, the damage to its reputation may be irreversible, and the injuries far worse. Sometimes the best evidence doesn't come from controversy. It comes from results. And the explosion of support for Sophie Cunningham is a perfect example. After she publicly defended Caitlin Clark following one of the most physical, controversial games of the season, Sophie didn't just earn applause. She became a star. Her TikTok following skyrocketed, gaining over 700,000 followers almost overnight, eventually crossing the 1 million mark. The comments poured in. Fans thanked her for standing on business. They said they were buying Fever jerseys. Some even admitted they were watching the WNBA for the first time because of Sophie. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a clear message from the audience. If you stand by Caitlin, we'll stand by you. That's the Caitlin Clark effect in full force. And it proves something the league desperately needs to recognize. Clark doesn't just drive eyeballs. She inspires loyalty, energy, investment. Players who defend her don't get backlash. They get rewarded. And if the league embraced that truth instead of dodging it, the WNBA wouldn't just be surviving, it would be thriving. In the NHL, there was an unspoken code known as the Gretzky rule. Players knew that while you could play hard against Wayne Gretzky, you didn't cheap shot him. You didn't take him out with intent. Why? Because everyone, from fans to front offices to players themselves, knew he was the league. Hurt Gretzky and you hurt the NHL. It wasn't about favoritism, it was about business. And now, the WNBA faces that exact same crossroads with Caitlin Clark. She doesn't want special treatment. She doesn't flinch from contact. But targeting her eyes? Body checking her into the hardwood? That's not rivalry, it's recklessness. And every time the league looks away, they're not just risking her safety. They're gambling with their own future. Because if Clark gets hurt, the league's ratings drop. Ticket sales plummet. Jerseys stop selling. Momentum dies. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player. She's the fuel for the league's growth. And if the WNBA doesn't step up and enforce a culture that protects its most valuable asset, they'll learn the hard way what happens when you let your Gretzky get blindsided. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert didn't mince words when she said Caitlin Clark is the most popular athlete in America. Not just in women's basketball, not just in the WNBA, not even just in basketball. The most popular. Period. That's not just hype, that's fact. And yet, this league, which owes so much of its recent growth to Clark, still can't figure out how to protect her on the court. Still allows referees to miss obvious calls. Still lets opponents take cheap shots without real consequences. Still tolerates a culture where players risk injury every night while begging for help. And if that doesn't change fast, the WNBA risks losing everything. This isn't about favoritism, it's about survival. Clark's presence boosts every metric that matters. Viewership, ticket sales, sponsorships, engagement, merch. And when she's on the floor, the entire league gets a lift. That's not opinion, that's data. So if the WNBA leadership doesn't act now, if they don't raise officiating standards, enforce player safety, and protect their biggest asset, the next time Caitlin Clark gets knocked down might not just be a moment. It might be the end of the moment. And when that happens, no whistle will save them.